Welcome to Financially Free Podcast with your host, Nay Torres. One of the reasons Nay could retire when he was 25 years old is because he was coached by the best. And now, through this podcast, so can you.
Robert, how are you, my friend? We met probably 2 or 3 years ago, and you have a very interesting story. You started in California as a consultant, went through an IPO, and then decided to move to Montañita, Ecuador to start your own hotel. How did that happen?
Yeah, so hey, Nate, good to talk to you. Yeah, I live in Montanita, Ecuador. It's on the coast of Ecuador, about 2 hours from Guayaquil. And I've lived here just about 9 years now. I'm here in Montanita, Ecuador, about 2 hours from Guayaquil. I'm the owner of a hotel called the Mi Hotel and Villas, as well as a housing community called Montanita Estates. Yeah, I moved here 9 years ago. Before I was here, I was a consultant, and then I actually worked for two startups, a second called Green Dot, which went public. So yeah, I guess the story of me getting here is I started in LA as a consultant. I worked in mainly in ERP and management consulting for 3 years. And it was a good job. I liked it. But I really wanted to get to the front end of deals. So I went into sales for a couple startups. I did that for 6 years. All throughout, I was a surfer. So I had gone to Costa Rica in 1999. I loved it. I loved the lifestyle. I actually went when I was in university with I think it was 10 friends. Stayed in a house right in front of the beach. We were in Tamarindo. We went surfing, and I think after that I got the idea in my mind that was kind of my goal in life. So I spent the next 10 years trying to earn enough money to get back to an environment like Costa Rica. In between jobs like Accenture, K-Stack was the other one as a supply chain outsourcing company. And Green Dot, I would take constant vacations to places like Indonesia, Mexico, Panama, Nicaragua, Peru, here in Ecuador, just kind of looking, seeing, planning, seeing if I could make my way back. And then finally it was around 2008 when Green Dot, the company I was working for, is a financial services company, filed to go public. I could see how much money I was going to have, and I thought it was time to make an escape. So I stayed another 2 years while my shares vested at Green Dot. And one day on a flight, I was going on a flight cross country to Ohio. I just decided I couldn't do it anymore. And the next day, I went back to my apartment, and a week later, we had sold everything. I had quit my job, and we had booked flights to Ecuador. So yeah, here I am. When I got here, I like to say that I had enough money in LA to buy a home, but here in Ecuador, I had enough money to kind of do whatever I wanted. I actually didn't really come down here with a plan. I came down here just to get away. I've been working for 10 years in consulting and for startups, and I just wanted to relax, but I think I was pretty wired to work. The work was different. So I spent the first kind of year and a half here in Ecuador, just getting to know people, getting to know the environment. Bought a couple quads. We're out with machetes, looking at land. And I think, I was really trying to figure out, okay, how can I create passive income? And I think that's kind of where I crossed this with this podcast, is that I was really looking for passive income. And Montanita is a town for people who've traveled in South and Central America, Indonesia. It's a surf town. It's probably about 1,000 people. It gets it's a fair amount of tourism. So there's 10,000 people that could show up on a weekend. And I saw right away that there was an opportunity because there just wasn't enough places for people to sleep. There's people everywhere in hostels, and there really wasn't anything on the higher end. Backpackers, a lot of surfers. There wasn't really anything. This was before Airbnb. There wasn't anything that was kind of a vacation rental. And I learned from my own experience that there wasn't even a place. There wasn't a place for me even to sleep. I was looking for a long-term rental, and there was tons of people here, tons of restaurants, tons of bars. There was a lot of life. There just wasn't enough housing. So as I started going out and looking for places, looking for things to invest in, I stumbled onto some land that was a hill right above town. I learned the laws to buy the land, and I bought it. And then it was about looking for a builder. So this is about a year and a half in, and there weren't any builders in the area either. So we were about 2 hours from a major city. There wasn't really the structures out here were bamboo shacks. half-built cement block construction. I was here before really internet in the home. There wasn't municipal water. Electricity was very iffy. But I set out to build four condos, 3-bedroom condos that I could rent monthly. And I had to knock on doors. So I basically, on my quad is an ATV. I would go around looking for homes that looked relatively complete, new. And I'd knock on the door and I'd ask who their builder was, how they built it. And I got the names of 10 builders that lived here, or most of them actually lived in Guayaquil, which is 2 hours away. And I started contacting them. At the time, this was before WhatsApp. There was a little bit of Facebook. So it was calling them, sending text messages, getting anyway. This was actually before there was even an MLS here, so you couldn't even find properties online. You had to call the numbers of people who spray painted their numbers, contacts on the sides of buildings here in order to find property, find land. And I called the builders, and I got 10 people to respond to my messages. I asked for a certain amount of information about how they build. 3 of them somewhat responded, and 1 actually responded, and he ended up being my builder. So we built our first 4 condos. Go ahead.
So you created basically something we're in the middle of nothing. And Montañitas, for everybody hearing right now, it's a beautiful town. I love to go to Montañita. It's a town you pass through on your way to a major city, right? It doesn't have. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, really not even that. Montanita has been known throughout South America as a surf town for 20, 30 years. And they're really, people didn't really start coming here until the 90s. There weren't really any decent roads until the 2000s. And I got here in 2011, and I remember trying to get internet in my house. And even in 2011, they looked at me like I was crazy. The first guy that wanted to set internet up in my house, you had to kind of find him in town. He didn't have an office. It was like a bootleg internet service, and he would take an antenna and put it on a bamboo post, and put the bamboo post sand, pointing it at another antenna, and it was really iffy. Nobody accepted credit cards, so when I wanted to stay here, I actually had to send a bank wire. So it's really off the beaten track. But if you were a surfer, you wanted to go to Ecuador like I was an explorer of surf spots for 10 years. You found it because it was the #1 surf spot in Ecuador. And I had come in 2005, and I came again in 2009, and it hadn't changed that much. I was looking at moving here, Nicaragua, which I'd spent a lot of time at. I just decided that Montanita was the place. Really, there was really nothing here as far as it was a surf spot and a backpacking spot, but that was about it. A lot of fruit juice shacks and hammocks and coconuts, and that was about it.
How does running a hotel in that environment looks like? How would you describe it?
Yeah, so what I thought, I guess to continue the story, so now the Mi Hotel is 15 condos and 15 hotel rooms. I've got 2 pools, I've got 2 jacuzzis, I've got a gym, a yoga studio, a restaurant. So it's really developed over the last 9 years. I started off just thinking I wanted passive income, monthly income, so I was going to do long-term rental. Ecuador was really growing as a retirement spot, and I was getting a lot of people down from the United States, from Europe, who are older people that when they got here, they really had a hard time dealing with kind of the elements. Like they couldn't, they didn't speak Spanish. They couldn't it was hard to get to the grocery store. They couldn't figure out if something broke, how to fix it. So what it ended up being, I would get a monthly rental, but it was like being running a hotel because there was just so much interaction between the guests. They needed to be babysat. So I pretty quickly got out of the monthly rental because it was just not passive. So then I really looked at kind of weekly, daily rental, and it did really well. There was nothing here on the high end, and high end here, a typical place was $15-20 for a night. We were charging between $100 and $200 for a 3-bedroom place. So it was higher end, not high end in the United States. But from the first month I went that direction, I was full. I was just full all the time. I actually paid somebody to go stand at the bus stop with flyers. I didn't really even have a website yet. And I was making 15% on my income in a month. I guess on my investment in a month. So the numbers were staggering right from the get. And this was before Airbnb. There was a little bit of VRBO, but if people remember how VRBO and Flipkey were before, you had to pay in order to list. So Airbnb was the first one that allowed you to list without paying. So there were very few rentals At the time, there was only 7 rentals in all of the Montanita area that you find online, and I had 4 of them. If you went to Tamarindo at the same time in Costa Rica, there was probably 3,000 rentals. So we were just full. And right away, when I recognized that, I went on to build another building. So I built 3 more condos right away. I had a good builder that I had developed a good relationship with. And we were building condo buildings in about 6 months. And then at that point, I started listening to my guests. And this was really in Latin America before in 2000. This was around 2013. They didn't really know what a vacation rental was. So like I said, Airbnb didn't exist yet, and they got to the vacation rentals, and I just wanted to give them the key and walk away. And they were asking where the pool was, where's the restaurant, who's going to clean the place. And after listening to our guests for a bit, I decided to put a pool in. We started with a bar and just kind of added on from there. And after a while, as we continued to grow, I realized I couldn't do it by myself. So when I started, it was just me, one person down at the bus stop, and a guy that was my guard who would kind of clean up the place. And we just grew. So as we grew, I hired more. What I've learned is running a hotel is not passive income. So as you transition to a hotel, you're charging more, but the demands of your guests go up. So it's been a much more hands-on experience than I originally planned. But it's fun. The big difference is, I don't look back. My worst day at the hotel is still my best day when I was consultant and in business development at these technology companies. I mean, So
I wanted to ask you, I've said this before in the podcast too, is that one thing better than having passive income is to do what you love. And I can tell you, Robert wakes up and he probably goes to surf in the morning, just eat healthy food in a beautiful beach before, starting the day, or it's a beautiful lifestyle, the one you have designed for yourself. Can you tell me a little bit about how did you talk to your family? Probably they were telling you were crazy when you did that.
Yeah, no, it's funny because I set out since 1999. It was kind of like a loose goal in my head that this is how I wanted to spend my life. But as time went on, and I worked really hard in LA, I had these really kind of intense jobs, and I was good at it, successful jobs. But I knew just over the long term, the amount of stamina to keep up that pace was just difficult. And as I got into kind of pushing into my late 20s and 30s, I started thinking about how I wanted to spend my 40s. And I used to say to myself, if I'm doing this when I'm 40 or 50, I'm gonna have a heart attack. So then I really, really started to focus on where I wanted to be. And I was looking hard at Nicaragua and Ecuador. And I would make kind of a trip down every 2-3 months, surfing in different areas and learning about the different areas. And as we filed for the IPO, I just knew I was going to go. So at that point, I started talking to my family and my friends. I was living beachfront in Manhattan Beach. I had a great life, and they thought I was crazy because they said, "What are you doing? You've got this great life. You live beachfront. You got a great job. You make good money." But in my mind, I just knew that over time, I wasn't going to be able to fit out. It wasn't how I wanted to spend my life. It was really hard to think about having a family also because it was so expensive in LA. I knew I was going to have to move, and I really didn't even think about having a family. I remember when I finally, I nailed down a date about 6 months before I was going to leave, and started telling everybody it was real, and nobody believed me. Probably 3 weeks before I left, we had this party where I sold everything that I owned, and I invited all my friends, and I basically just dumped out everything. And we have in Ecuador, there's something called almuerzo, which is set lunch, which is $3. You get fresh fish, you get fruit juice, you get patacones, and you get a soup for $3. So as a joke, we sold everything in my apartment for $3. If you wanted a soup, $3. If you wanted a coffee maker, it was $3. Had all my friends come over, and they basically basically bought everything I owned a day. I sold everything, but I had 6 surfboards, 2 dogs. I put some papers in my mom's garage, and sold everything on a Saturday, and I was gone on Monday. All my friends who are surfers in Manhattan Beach, they had a poll to see how long I'd make it. I think the longest was 6 months they thought I'd back, but here I am 9 years later, and yeah, I don't look back at all. It was the best decision I ever made. And to be honest, I could never move back into the U.S. or Europe or any type of environment like that. The lifestyle here suits me. I like being able to wake up in the morning. Like I spent my first year and a half here. I think I surfed 6 hours a day. I drove the whole country with other people I met here. Learned Spanish, and yeah, I mean, I control my time. I don't. I think the hardest part about those jobs that I had in the U.S. is there were times I'd wake up in the morning and I'd have butterflies in my stomach from stress. Just before I'd open up my email to see what was happening that day. It just doesn't happen anymore. I love what I do.
How much would you say to somebody that lives, for example, in LA? How much do you need to leave daily or in Montañita in this case, like a normal lifestyle there?
Yeah, I mean, you can live really comfortable here for $2,000, and half of that is gonna be your house. So if you want to live in a really, really nice place, look between 800,000, and then everything else, you couldn't spend more than 2,000 a month. And that includes going out to eat every day, all of your meals, having an active social life, and just so living, in the US, in LA, where you need $20,000 to $30,000 a month to break even base. Down here, you need about 2,000 to have the life that I want, and a lot of people live for less. But the life, I didn't come down here to live, at a standard less than what I had in LA, but it's about 2,000.
Okay, perfect. Excellent. How does the day in the life looks for you? You wake up in the morning, what time?
Yeah, I get up early, so I tend to get up early, about 6 or 7. I spend an hour or two drinking coffee. I'm a bit older now, so when I was in the water by 6:15. First one in the water, surf until 8. Come back, eat, and then start my day. Now my day starts closer to 9. I take my time waking up. I generally then I'll go drive around, look for where I want to surf. I'm a big kite surfer now too, so I might spend 2-3 hours a day kite surfing. We're pretty lucky here in Ecuador that we have 2 seasons. We have kite season and surf season, and I do both. So I might be on the foil. I might be on the surfboard, or I'll be on my kiteboard. I'll spend between 2 hours and 3 hours doing that. Then I'll pop into the hotel. Usually, if I don't go to the hotel before I drive out, I'll stop into the hotel between 10 and 12, and I'll spend a couple hours just kind of coming up with a plan for the day. The one thing with living in a really tropical place is I spend a lot of my time on maintenance and kind of just planning. I've got 5 maintenance people that work for me, and maintaining the hotel in a tropical environment at a hotel standards all day, every day. And then so I'll spend 2 hours, then I'll figure out what I'm eat for lunch. It's generally some type of fresh fish, fresh seafood. We've got we can eat out for $5-6, or I've got a full-time person that lives with me and cooks for me, which is great because I eat really healthy. And there's generally food already ready for me when I get home. Then in the afternoon, I might go for a surf again or go to the beach. I have 2 kids who were born here in Ecuador, so I spend a lot of time with my kids. And yeah, same thing. I really don't leave the house after 7. There is in Montanita is famous for its nightlife. And there were years when I first got here where I was out more at night, but we don't really go out much at night. Usually I'm asleep by 9 or 10 after a full day of surfing, kiting, working at the hotel, hanging with my kids, and eating fresh seafood. So that's a typical.
I remember those days. We used to party with me. That was so much fun, man.
Yeah.
You're convincing me to
know about Montanita. Montanita is famous in South America for its nightlife. Actually, started as a surf town, and then it grew into this party town. So if you want to party, if you want to be out in Montanita, you can be out every night until 4 or 5 in the morning, or you can kind of have the life that I have, with kind of a healthy outdoors, surfing, working out. At the hotel, we have a gym where we have there's a lot of MMA here, so we have an MMA gym, jiu-jitsu gym. boxing gym here that most of my friends are doing that kind of stuff as well. So we're all really healthy, but there is a crazy nightlife. Montanita's grown exponentially in the last 20 years. So like I said, it started off just a place that you had to arrive by boat or donkey or plane. I don't know how they drop you out of a plane 20 years ago to a place where, on a weekend we might have 10,000 people here for a party, and then they'll leave on Monday. Monday through Friday is pretty quiet, but there's probably at any given time there's probably 400 or 500 backpackers, people who are living here for longer than a month, living in the area, which is cool because you have a really international crowd.
Yeah, it's super cool. I like that about Montañitas, that you can have the hardcore parties downtown, or you can have a relaxed lifestyle, as you mentioned, just by walking 10 minutes any direction.
Yeah.
So talk to me about the culture shock, especially about managing a business in Ecuador. You faced an earthquake, currency shocks, we destroy the local currency. I mean, you have seen a lot of things.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a roller coaster, and I didn't have any experience building a hotel, running a hotel. I love building a hotel. It's a lot of fun coming up with ideas. I traveled to a number of different places throughout the world to surf. Lived in LA, so I had tons of ideas about the style, tropical styles. I call it a tropical boutique hotel, and it started off amazing from the day that we opened until about 2015. We were just doing so well. We were growing exponentially. I was building. We were full. There wasn't enough housing. And then Montanita in Ecuador was famous in South America for surfing and partying. And I'd say 80% of the people that stayed at my hotel were from Argentina. And really 60% of the town was from Argentina. In 2015, about 3 years in, Argentina's currency collapsed. And really even thought about the currency of Argentina. And I didn't realize it, but I was one of the first people in Montanita to accept credit cards. And I had all Argentinians staying with me because they could pay with a credit card and they had certain limits with the amount of cash you could get. And I knew that I was benefiting from that, but I didn't realize the extent I was benefiting. So it wasn't a slow crash. It was one day the president of Argentina came in and the currency went from 4 to 1 to 20 to 1 overnight. And 80% of my business dried up. And so that was in 2015, and it was a huge shock. Luckily, the hotel had grown to enough at that point that a lot of that business was replaced by Ecuadorian business, domestic tourism. 3 million people live in Guayaquil, and all of a sudden it was a different type of reservation. So we went from getting reservation, 6 months in advance to reservations getting 6 hours in advance. And we went from an average reservation being 7 days long to the average reservation being 2 days long. And we adjusted our business right away to be able to manage that, but it was a different type of reservation. It's a lot harder. It required more resources. And then a year after that, we had the earthquake that hit here in 2016, and Montanita wasn't affected physically, but 10 hours north up where the epicenter of the earthquake hit was completely destroyed. And the aftershocks of that and the extent of that went all the way to about 2 hours north of us. But from a business standpoint, the entire country shut down. So there was this national consciousness that said that it wasn't right to go out, drink mojitos in Montanita when people are north of us. So the business just stopped for 6 months in 2000, where we were all doing relief work. We were heading north. We wanted to help. There's other surf towns in the north that we knew a lot of the people up there. They'd come to Montanita. We stayed with them. We wanted to help them. A lot of them came and stayed with us in Montanita. And yeah, so again, another shock to the business, 2016, that took about a year to recover from that. So 2017, 2018, things are going great again for about 2 years. And then there's periodic political upheaval in Ecuador. I guess it was just last year, 2019. And there was a big revolt when they tried to change gas price here. We have subsidized gas, and gas prices are very low. It's about $1 a gallon. But we're also in the dollar. So in order to get loans from the IMF, they were making conditions the IMF put on the country where that they had to let gas go to a free market economy. And the people here just didn't want that. And so they shut the country down. There was political upheaval. They shut down the roads, protests. They were burning ATM machines. They were burning businesses. It started in Quito, where you're from, Nate, but it was the whole country. So basically the country went down into military lockdown. lockdown. And so that was about 6 months ago. And now we've got this pandemic, which everybody knows what's happening right now. So I'm talking to you in the beginning of April of the COVID-19 pandemic. And it's, they shut the whole country down again. So when you build a business, I don't care where it is, you can kind of plan for these 10, maybe a 15%, seasonal adjustment in your business. But in the last 5 years, my business has gone to zero 4 times, which is it's hard to run a business that way. And you don't expect it. Everybody who's going through this pandemic right now, business, if you're an entrepreneur, the pain that you're experiencing in your small business, this is my 4th one in the last 4 years. So it's sad, but I'm almost a little numb to it. In a way, this is horrible. I've had to cut back on pay with employees. I've suspended pay to vendors, but unfortunately, you become used to it when you have a business here in a place like this, in a place like Ecuador. I'd imagine some of the other kind of small town surf spots that I could end up in. Costa Rica, Nicaragua had their problems. Peru had their problems. Chile and Colombia. So it's more part of life here. It's much different than running a business in the U.S. On the other side of that, it's much more relaxed. So, starting a business, I always wanted to have a business in the U.S., but it was always cost prohibitive from what you needed as far as startup capital, permits. It's so competitive. So I was able to find a place here where I was literally, one of the first people to start, a middle market high-end hotel vacation rental. And this was 2011. That's how stuff has been happening in the United States for 50 years. So, being one of the first people to have internet, being the first person to have fiber optics run in the hotel, it's not rocket science to start a business in a place. So there's just tons and tons of opportunity to do things and to start businesses, whether it's a restaurant, a juice shack. It doesn't matter what it is. There's just way less competition, way less red tape to start your business. The amount of capital that you need to start your business, fraction of what you need in the United States. So I used to tell people, if you need $200,000 to start a business in the U.S., you need $20,000 to start it in Ecuador. My hotel, which would cost me, $5-10 million to build in maybe more in the U.S., cost a fraction of that. So you just have more opportunity there's less permit. So that's why I've been able to do what I've done, and also, withstand a lot of these shocks that I've gone through over the last 4 years I just never even imagined when I started the business. 2013 started. You can't imagine. You just can't imagine the way currencies in Argentina would affect your business, small town in Ecuador, or a pandemic, in China would affect your small business in a surf town off the coast of Ecuador. It's amazing.
Yeah, for sure. It's been a very interesting couple of years. What's next for you, Robert?
Yeah, we're all kind of just in a holding period right now. Ecuador's done a really great job of we're in an island out here, not an island, but we've been completely isolated out here in Montanita. We don't have any cases, of the coronavirus, but we're shut down. I see it happening this month. My goal from a lifestyle is to continue doing it, and I love my life. I'm very lucky. I just got back I was traveling in India, Nepal, and Sri Lanka. I spent 6 weeks. I'm able to run the business remotely. So I did some kite surfing and surfing in Sri Lanka. When you live in Ecuador, and I spent a lot of time in the U.S., I really wanted to kind of blow my mind culturally. So I went to India, Nepal, and got a dose of Hinduism and Buddhism out there. And I really enjoyed it. I got back just before they shut down the country. Luckily, I had to book an emergency flight back to get back. But yeah, that's the goal, is to just continue this kind of flexible lifestyle. I'm always trying to engineer myself maximum freedom. I've already surfed the whole world 3 times, and now I want to kite the whole world. It's kind of opened up a whole new places that I want to see and visit for kite surfing. I'll continue to grow the business in a way that hopefully allows me to be flexible with my lifestyle. So I need to be able to run it remotely, have good employees that can operate the business when I'm not there. I spend most of my time on the marketing, Instagram, Facebook, social media, managing partners for sales, like I've always done. Actually, it's the same stuff I did before I was running a hotel. I'm just doing it at the hotel now, but I can do that from anywhere in the world. So, and then, one thing from running a business here, this type of business, is I'm dependent on good employees, and that ebbs and flows. I'll have times where I have amazing employees that can run the business and I don't need to talk to for a week. And I'll have times where I just don't have those types of employees, and I'm having to constantly be at the hotel and make sure that things are set up the way they're supposed to be. I mean, just to give you an idea, 12 years ago, in 2012, when I started the business, I would hire a cleaning person to make the beds, clean a condo, and you wouldn't think would be difficult to do. But the first time I walked into a room to see how they put the sheets on the bed, they didn't know how to do it because they had never stayed in a hotel. So, and then when you go to their homes, they don't live in your cleaning person might not live in a very nice home. They might not have air conditioning. They might not even have walls that connect to the ceiling. And so their standard of cleaning, they just don't even know how. So there's times in the business here where I have to very, very hands-on to things as granular as how to clean a room, how to make a bed, how to check people in, because a lot of the people that are working for you have just never had that experience in a hotel before. And as time goes on, it's gotten better, but it's still, it ebbs and flows in business. So yeah, continuing to grow the business in a way that allows me flexibility with my lifestyle, to surf and kite, be with my family, and travel the world. Yeah.
So what would you tell yourself if you could talk to yourself right now and you were starting out, or somebody that's starting out with some kind of idea like that, what would you tell them?
I think first of all is to go for it. A lot of people have a hard time, there's a lot of people have a hard time. I can't tell you how many guests I check in. They're just enamored with my lifestyle, that, want to know everything about me, how I got here. It's a goal for them to kind of have a similar lifestyle, but they have a hard time making that. And they might have the means, but they've got a mortgage, maybe they have kids, and they never set themselves up in order to make that. And it's tied into a mortgage, tied into a school system to kind of get away. And luckily, I was 32 years old when I left, but I had set my life up in a way that allowed me to sell everything in a weekend. And the second thing is don't look back. There's times when I've gone through, like I said, the earthquake, currency changes, strikes, that you're kind of asking yourself, what was I thinking, but those times never last long. And then I just can't ever imagine myself in the work environment that I was before. I think I said it before, my worst day here is still better than my best day when I was, opening my computer in the morning, working at a startup. Just the stress and the treadmill that you're in the United States. So, once you're here, you have to commit. You can't come down with one foot out the door. I think it's easier when you're younger, actually. Ecuador's gotten a lot of publicity as a great place to retire. It's hard once you're older, to come to a place like this where, we have electricity outages, regular electricity outages. We have internet. It comes and goes. I used to do a lot of trading stocks when I had to stop when I was here. You can't be tied to your computer all the time. Water, there's times where you have food poisoning and there's no water, because the town runs out of water and your tanks run dry and you're running, and, I had to build my own roads. I had to put in my own electricity system. As you get older, those things are harder to manage. So being young and trying this lifestyle out where you can kind of navigate not having electricity, not having water, because everybody goes through those experiences here quite often, actually. 9 years later, once a week, we're still going through power outage, and it's part of the adventure. It's not all, you're going to have to give in order to get when you're in a place like this. It's not all just coconuts and hammocks. Sometimes I feel like I have to go out and kill my dinner, or go out and harvest my dinner, in order to eat. You spend hours. We just got our first grocery here this year. Now you're from here, so Tia, but we went 9 years without a grocery store. So when I wanted fresh fish, you go to the fish market, then you go to the vegetable market. You go, I went a long time not eating meat because you had to drive an hour in order to get to beef. You are working harder, but you have that time, even that time back in the day. So that's the advice that I would give everybody, is make the leap and don't look back. You have to commit. Even when you don't have electricity, you don't have water, you have food poisoning, you'll get past it.
Very good. Got it. How often did you go back to the U.S.?
I
For
used
how
to
long?
never go back. I would go back once a year for Thanksgiving. I love LA, so I lived in LA 10 years before I came here. And Southern California is a beautiful place. My only challenge with California was just had a hard time thinking about growing old there. It's just hard. My whole family is in Southern California, LA, and San Diego, and I go back once a year. Right now, I had two kids who were born in Ecuador, so I've been heading back more because they've been in the U.S. since August with their mom. So I'm trying to kind of reorganize my life right now, so I can go see my kids every 6 to 8 weeks in the United States while they're there. And then also have the freedom to run the business, which is cool. I think if my family wasn't there and my kids weren't there, I would never go back, to be honest. I love the United States and I love LA, but the world is an enormous place and there's 50 places in the world that I like to visit before I go back to the United States. But that's just the situation right now. And I don't know. I mean, to be honest, I love Montanita and I love Ecuador, but I don't know if I'll live here forever. We'll see. I know I won't go back to the United States, but I've loved the process of building a hotel here. I'd probably do it again. If it's here, great. If not, I'll find another place I can surf and kite surf and live in a super flexible environment.
Excellent, my friend. Thank you so much for your time, Robert. Where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram. The hotel is at Montanita Estates, or my personal. Feel free to send me a note at RobertXRoss1. And the website for the hotel is montanitaestates.com. And yeah, if you're interested in kind of learning more about my lifestyle here, staying at the hotel, if you're interested in property, owning land, a condo, building a home down here in Ecuador on the coast, feel free to shoot me a note. And yeah, I always get back to people. So I love talking to people and hosting them down here.
Thank you for your time, my friend.
Cool. Great talking to you, Nate.
Great talking to you too.
I'll see you soon.
Did you learn something today? How can you apply your insights? What's next for you? The fastest way to make things happen is to just share this podcast episode with more people that may find it valuable too. Talk about it with them and surround yourself with like-minded people. Hope you found this valuable. Don't forget to subscribe. See you next time.
This podcast references opinions and is for information purposes only, not intended to be investment advice. Seek a duly licensed professional for investment advice.